Mamadou Sireli says he's lost all hope to accomplish his Canadian dream.
It costs a lot of money to do the paperwork, and then they outright refuse you, and without valid reason. It's truly discouraging.
He applied for a student visa but was rejected 4 times in 2 years. His plans to come study in Canada are crumbling, just like his future as a pastry chef.
If you study in Canada and then you come back to find work, it's going to be easy for you. Anywhere in Africa, the more I stay here, the more behind I am. I'm not moving forward.
Mamadou received a scholarship from the province of Quebec worth more than 15,000 euros. But just like him, about 70% of French-speaking African students who apply for a student visa are rejected by the Canadian government. That's compared to 35% of non-African students.
They also tell you it's because you are not planning to come back to the country. What do they know? If they really don't want to give you a visa, then they should tell you the true reason why.
The high rejection rate prompted the creation of a federal committee to study the issue. After a month-long inquiry, their report concluded that some decisions were arbitrary and that Immigration Canada is not making it easy for French-speaking African students.
There should be no biasness when they start looking into the applications of the students. It has to be looked on the merits of the application, and we have also recommended that there should be an ombudsman in the immigration department to look into the rejection rates.
To tackle the high rejection rates, the Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration made another 34 recommendations. Meanwhile, in Quebec,
Bonjour Mamadou. Vous allez bien?
Mamadou's lawyer isn't optimistic. She says the stats for 2021 are overwhelming. Out of more than 77,000 applications for student visas coming from French-speaking African countries, more than 53,000 were rejected by Immigration Canada.
Vous pourriez perdre temps et
You can waste time and money on trying to come study. I would recommend instead to apply for a program that will allow you to enter as a temporary foreign worker through an employment offer. But past rejections will always harm you, so you will really have to work on your plan to return home in some applications you will file. I wish you the best of luck.
The plan to attract more immigrants to Canada is working. Applications for student visas are coming from across the world, and according to Immigration Canada, they have nearly tripled in the past 7 years. Most of those who apply, says this lawyer, are hoping to get permanent residency status.
Many are under the impression of being duped by advertising, the one where they sell you a dream, one that in practical terms doesn't exist.
African students have to work extra hard to achieve that dream. Their plan to prove their intent to return home has to be particularly detailed.
For African students, it's really an obstacle course because they have to make efforts to prove that their plan is true. It's like we're assuming that they're acting in bad faith and want to stay in Canada. It's the case for many people who come from Europe, from Asia, and who have the same dream to come to Canada.
In its report, the committee also targeted the Chinook software. It allows to treat files faster, as it summarizes applications consisting of hundreds of pages into a few lines only.
We always have the same rejection. I'm not convinced that you will leave Canada at the end of your studies, taking into account the limited job offers in your country, taking into account your current employment situation, and taking into account your real estate and financial situation. What worries us is the lack of transparency in the system and the fact that we don't truly have information about how the decision was taken. And when we look at the reasons behind the rejection, there's no link to the proof that was submitted. For sure, it's very puzzling.
Immigrant rights organization Le Québec c'est nous aussi welcomes the report. They've been asking for the creation of the position of defender of immigration rights.
The government is at a turning point. It's up against the wall and is being forced to see there is a problem. And now the government was given recommendations to end and to reduce the impacts that some of its immigration laws have on people who come from Africa.
The federal report also points that African students could be victims of racial prejudice. When reached by France 24, the Ministry of Immigration acknowledged there are flaws in the system, but said progress has been made. In 2019, the Trudeau government implemented a strategy to fight racism, but experts argue it didn't manage to uproot the systemic racism that is hurting the chances of African students.
There are certain ways of operating that are sometimes detrimental to certain groups. That's what makes it systemic. And that's why we have to address mechanisms. First, they have to be understood, they have to be taken apart, they have to be analyzed, and that demands a deep revision.
The Immigration Ministry says it's looking into the 35 recommendations issued by the Federal Committee. The government is expected to respond to the recommendations within 6 months.